Hey there, Stencil fan. It's Kari with StudioR12 Stencils. Today you're going to want to grab a cup of coffee and come paint with me. I have already base coated my surface. We have lots of videos on tips for how to base coat, how to get it even, how to not make messes on your edges. Speaking of edges, on my sample project that I had painted, the edges were already black on my surface. On this one, they are not, and they are natural. So you have a couple of options here. You can make them black, or you can make them the color of your surface. So I'm going to prefer to do the color of my surface with this project. I like to use the ink sweeper for this. It's a really dense sponge. You put your fingers in the little back of it. Just get a little bit of paint on your ink sweeper, and then you will go around the edges of your surface until you get them all nice and coated in the color that you want. Now you will have to be mindful when you are doing this. There's a little spillover. I don't even know if you can see it on camera, but I can notice it. So there's a little bit of spillover on this, and when that happens, you'll want to go back through with your polyfoam brush and just feather it out, or maybe do the edges and then do your final layer of your base coat. Once you're done with your ink sweeper or your jumbo dauber, any of your sponges, you want to go ahead and get it in the water. With this little place to put your fingers, it makes it really easy to put the base of a brush in it and sink it down in the water so that is fully submerged. If it flips up on its side, or if some of it isn't under the water, it will start to dry out, and then you'll be really sad because it will be ruined. Okay, so on the project we're doing today, we have a fun little messy, stainy coffee background, and I'm going to show you how to do that. And this is a technique that you can do for clouds, for snow, just to add a little pop of color. We are getting one of these really gnarly sea sponges, and they have a lot of texture. They're really rough. We love them, and you can get them on StudioR12.com. I always like to start by putting it in a little bit of water, my water bucket. If your water is not clean, you will not want to do that and potentially get yucky color in your sponge. So if your water's clean, use that. If not, go run it under your sink. And then I'm just going to look for a place on my sponge that I like the texture. I like what it looks like. I chose this one because it seems really dense and there's a lot of moving parts. I'm going to fold my sponge over to give myself a little area, kind of like the ink sweeper, and I'm going to dip it into a stain. So I am using American Walnut by Minwax. There are some others that are really similar. Hedgewood is a really similar one. Any dark brown stain will work here. So I have my stain on my palette paper. I'm going to put a little bit on my sponge. And then just like we do with our dome brushes, I am dabbing it off. However, for some reason, I always dab off with my stain on my palette paper. I don't have a rhyme or reason for that. I just don't ever come to the paper towel when I do it. I just do it right on my project. So you want to get quite a bit off because you want the open and scraggliness of the sponge. So you can see that the more I do it, the more open it becomes. And then I'm just going to very gently start tapping. We're not using much pressure. And I'm also kind of changing the turn of my wrist as I do this so that I can get some different looks and I don't have the same pattern. So over here, I changed it a little too much and it looks like more of a swirl pattern. So I'll go back over top of that and kind of even that out a little bit. And we are just going all the way around. You can do it as far in or as little as you would like. On my sample board, I had it a little further in as we got into the word house, but it really is just going to be random for me on this project. And then you can do it as light or dark as you want, and you can do as many layers as you want. The more layers you do, the more texture you will have. And then this is just going to kind of frame your project. And then we are going to stencil over top of it, so then it looks like it's just a really cool background. So a couple of things when you do your sponging. When you get it wet, you want to make sure that you wring it out so that your sponge isn't sopping wet. If the sponge is sopping wet, then it is just going to be a muddy mess on your project. And you will want to be sure you are offloading so that you'd only have a little bit on so you can see the texture of the sponge. The sponging is something that I would recommend grabbing an old scrap board, grabbing some cardboard, and practicing until you get the look that you want before you come to your project. And then if you do it and you don't love it, let it dry, sand it down, and base coat a couple of layers back over it, and then try it again. So we're gonna sink this into the water. We want to make sure that the part that has the stain is in the water so that it doesn't ruin our sponge. With the sea sponges, it's a little easier just to kind of pick off the dirty pieces. We don't love to do that on the polyfoams just because it makes them uneven, but you can do that there as well. So now I'm going to make sure this is dry. We're going to hit the blow dry, and then we're ready to stencil. For this project, when I was originally painting it, I knew the color scheme that I wanted to do. We really love the light blue and the black. We also used a similar color scheme on this kitchen sign. We also did some fun things with the drop shadow, which we're going to do today. I love these because it shows that you don't have to drop shadow everything. We only drop shadowed some of the words on our many have eaten, few have died. I do have a video for that. And then on this one, we're going to do a little drop shadow that's reverse on every other word. So just some fun different ways that you can do your drop shadow that you don't have to do them on every word or in all the same colors. So when we started this, I knew that I wanted the blue with the black background. And then I decided, what if we changed it up? Instead of making it all one color, we did every other. And I love how it turned out, and we are definitely going to be doing this on more projects. We're gonna grab our dome brush, and we are going into color number 49. So when you start your drop shadowing and you are going to use a stencil, you will put your stencil where you want it on your surface, line it up, and then you will do at least one layer of your color that you want to be the main color on top. So I want for this, the blue, for my this is my main color. I am not painting everything on this project. I am leaving off the arrow, the little bit of flourishes, and so I'm going to grab my multi-masker and come over here. Since we are doing so many different layers, you could go ahead and just take these off, and then you don't have to worry about grabbing your multi-masker since we're not going to paint them at all. Okay, so now we have those taped off. Now we don't have to worry about accidentally painting them or accidentally ghosting into them. I did let my brush dry, so I'm going to go back in and get some more of the blue and come back and start stenciling my base. I will typically only do one layer of my base layer if I'm doing just a traditional drop shadow with black on the edge. However, since this light blue is going to be part of the drop shadow on some of the words, I'm going to go ahead and do 2 layers. I want to make it really bold so it really pops as a drop shadow. And I also want to make sure that I have covered up some of our coffee stain so that that blue really pops off that background. Okay, I have 2 layers painted of my blue. I am going to put my brush in a full top baggie and wrap it up because I will be using this brush again. I don't want to get another one dirty. I don't want to wash another one. So I'm just gonna set it to the side, but I am going to wrap it up so that it does not dry out. Now we will make sure this is nice and dry. We will blow dry it and be ready for our next layer. So we have our base painted. Ta-da! Our next step is to decide where we want our drop shadow. I typically always do it down and to the right. So what that means is I will have my stencil in its main resting place. I will bring it down just a slight bit and to the right. So now you can see that whatever is white on our background, that's going to be where our drop shadow is. So that is what the black will be. I'm gonna go into my black paint, offload, and come to our project. When I drop shadow, I typically will stipple. We have lots and lots of layers that we are going to paint, and I'm just going to stipple to get more coverage faster. You do have to be mindful that when you stipple, you are offloading a little extra bit just so that you don't run the risk of bleeding under. Okay, we have 2 layers of black done. I'm going to peel off the edge of this and do a little sneak peek. Look how good that looks. You could stop it here. The blue on the back really makes it pop. I do have a spot here that I ghosted that I did not tape off well enough. So let's see if we can get that up. I did already blow dry my project. So you want to make sure you are peeking and checking for mistakes before you blow dry. We are going to grab our click eraser. This is a PVC eraser. If you go to your project with it dry, nothing happens. But if you get it wet and the paint is still fresh, ta-da! It came right off, even after being blow dried on, which I am super happy about. So if it wouldn't have come off, then you could go back into your polyfoam brush, or you could go back into a round brush, get some more of our number 79, which was our background color, and just touch that up. But this is a game changer when fixing mistakes, and also a good reminder of peeking when working on your project. Okay, so now we're gonna go to our last layer. Our house, love, and coffee are done and good to go. We just need to finish this runs on and. So remember that first layer we did? Well, it is acting like a drop shadow for some of these words. But the reason we do that first layer is because it helps us line up our stencil when we are ready to go finish our project. And typically, when I'm drop shadowing, it is with that black underneath, because when I drop shadow, I want it to pop off the background because maybe the colors aren't bold enough or they don't have enough contrast, so that black or whatever color you're using will make it pop. And you can use any color. You see how pretty this light blue is here just to give it a little contrast. I am going to go back into my tape because I want a nice little reminder that I am not painting all of these words, and I don't accidentally want to swirl into one. So I'm just going to tape off the edges of all of the ones that I'm not painting. You most certainly don't have to do this, and we can just pay attention. However, I'm going to say rather safe than sorry on this project. So now we're good to go. We're doing this runs on and. I'm reminding you, I'm reminding myself, we're going to go back into our blue brush. I did a really good job that first time, and with the black, of using the amount of paint that I put out. If you watch the video I did where we timed to see how long it would take me to paint, I had an accident with one of the paint bottles and, oh, that got stuck. That's entirely too much paint for this project, but that's okay. And like half of the bottle came out. So we absolutely had more than we needed. A tip for when you are painting over a black drop shadow, I always recommend stippling. And it will take some layers to paint over top of the black. Depending on what color you are using over top of the black. If you want a red, a yellow, an orange over the black, then you may want to do a layer of gray, a light gray, not a white, that will neutralize it, and then you can do your color over top. So if you're doing a color that is more in the red family, reds, pinks, yellows, oranges, even some purples, sometimes they are hard to pop off of the black and it will take lots and lots and lots of layers. This one, thankfully, did not. This blue really covers the black really well, and I will do 2 layers, but even after 1 layer, I'm already seeing that it's covering really nicely. Okay, our blue is done. This is actually, I feel like a really quick project. There are lots of layers and there's a lot of stippling. However, it did not take long to do. Let's peel this off. Are you ready for the great reveal? And ta-da! So now we have the black being a drop shadow to the blue being a drop shadow to the black, and some of the drop shadows, the black drop shadows, are down and to the right. The blue drop shadows are up and to the left. So it just gives it some nice movement on the project. And I love that on this one that we did, the coffee is a little bit darker, a little bit richer, and it kind of gives it a completely different look compared to the lighter. I did just think of one thing that we could do to make it even a little more rich. So we have this special dark wax. It's a Minwax finishing wax. I put on a plastic baggie on my hand just because it's kind of icky. We always keep a sponge in here. These are really great sponges, and you can see that this wax is dark. So there's also a natural that goes on clear, but this one goes on dark. So we're gonna put a little bit of it on our sponge, and then I'm just going to come to the edges and wipe my wax along the edge, and you can see that it's kind of darkening the background a little, and it's kind of giving it just a little bit more stain. So that's just an extra way that you can add a little bit more of a rustic antique look to your project with a wax. If you love this project and want to see more fun craft tips, techniques, stenciling, DIY projects, you are in the right place. Be sure to subscribe to StudioR12 Stencils right here on YouTube. Ring the bell so you can be notified anytime we add new videos, and be sure to check out our playlists on drop shadow and how to use sponges on your projects.